Hello, Steve.
Hello, Natalie. So good to see you again.
You too. Welcome to the What podcast.
Okay.
We're having so much fun with this. So, the What podcast.
Okay.
So I'm really happy that you were able to join me today. And I would just love to start by you having a moment to share with our audience who you are and what's important about what you're doing as a coach today.
Yeah, so absolutely. So my background is in accounting, finance, banking, and investments. So I'm also a CPA, as you can tell from my name over the Zoom. So I started my career in international and Canadian banking, and then I move on to become a partner in one of the accounting firms. And now I am currently working as a director for one of the leading financial and insurance companies in Canada. Although I did have some success in my career, I always felt like I wasn't in alignment with my highest purpose. And so I had to ask myself the question, okay, so what's the reason that I exist on this planet? Like, who am I really, right? And as I thought about that, one of the things that I thought about was my passion was really in personal development. So if I'm really in personal development, then what can I do to be in alignment with who I am in regards to what I'm passionate about? And that's how I came across Canada Coach Academy and you, Natalie. And I had a few conversations with Wendy, and I just knew deep inside that this was the right path for me going forward at the time. And so fast track, after doing the life and wellness class with you, I've been coaching a lot with the peer coaches through the global village. And that has really opened up my eyes on the power of coaching. Because initially I thought that coaching was all about, leading people to the right direction, giving them solution and feedback. Like a lot of the influencers are in the personal development field. So I thought that's what coaching was.
Mm,
But I came to realize that the coaching is really about creating safe space for the clients to reflect on their thoughts, having awareness of the things that they're going on in their life by asking profound and deep questions. And so the more I became skillful in that asset of coaching, the more I realized that wow, this is a superpower that anybody can have if they want to. And this gives so many people opportunity to open themselves up and find solutions that are already within them. So I'm just
mm.
really hooked with coaching at this point. So while I'm still working my full-time job, I am building up my coaching business on the side. And I am just looking forward to continue to coach, whether I get paid or not. It's not a big deal for me at this point. It's more of a passion for me. But I know that the more I coach, the more it's going to take up more of my time and eventually become my full-time business. So
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
it's been happening.
So I'm really intrigued about this question, this existential question you asked yourself. What is the meaning of
Yeah.
your life, I guess, is what I heard. So what did you come up with what led you to coaching?
Yeah, so when I thought about my passion into personal development, I also asked myself, okay, so why am I so passionate about personal development? Because everybody else around me at the time were not as passionate as I was. And to give you a little bit more background of how I was raised up, after immigrating to Canada, I had a lot of struggle in fitting into the Canadian culture because first, I didn't speak a word of English. There was a language barrier. And the Canadian culture was just very different from how I was raised back in South Korea.
Mm,
So that limiting belief created a vicious cycle. And at that time, I had a really severe case of social anxiety, like to a point where like I couldn't even make an eye contact with anyone, let alone speak a single word. And
wow.
while I attended high school, I would often find corners to eat lunch alone because if I was seen by others, I thought that I'll be judged. And if I'm judged, then I'll be judged as who I am as a person. So that was really my self-protection mechanism to not get seen by other people. But after I graduated from high school, I just didn't want to live like that because I just want to live like a normal person, have regular friends, and just go through the life that normal people in their 10s and their 20s will go through. And so that's when I came across Tony Robbins in the field of personal development.
Right.
And one of the most profound insight that I had at the time was my past does not equal my future, and that I have the power and the control to make decision to change my life in any given time. And so that really led me to the world of personal development. And as I learned more and more about personal development, and I travel around the world to attend live events like seminars, courses, and getting to
Oh,
meet some of those influencers in person, including Tony Robbins, I thought that, you know what, instead of just having all this growth for myself, why don't I have this growth so that I can eventually make a contribution to other people and to this world? And so that's what really got me interested in coaching. And I also knew that Tony started his career as a peak performance coach. So I thought,
mhm.
hey, let's research and find out what this is all about. And that's how I came across you. And the life's been never been the same since then.
Wow. So, well, thanks for sharing that. It sounds like that was probably a very difficult transition for you. And I'm wondering, one question that comes up for me with the Tony Robbins experience that you had, what are you noticing is the difference between like a Tony Robbins type path in personal development and coaching, like becoming a coach?
Right. So I think personal development is pretty broad in general. So it encompasses a lot of different aspects like wealth, health, relationship, right? So there's no, I guess, specific focus into what you want to grow in. But in terms of coaching, is a particular skill set and a discipline. So if you want to learn how to coach, then there are certain skill sets like foundational knowledge and frameworks that guides coaches on how to effectively coach somebody else, right? It's
Mm,
not just all about having all the knowledge in the world and transferring that knowledge to the clients. It's about recognizing how I can guide a client so that they can find the solutions that's already within themselves. It's almost like helping them to remove the fog so that they see the solution that's been reflecting on the mirror. And that was there all along. They just couldn't see it because of the smog, right? So I think that's really the big difference between like the world of personal development and the Tony Robbins's of the world and getting more specific and detailed, which is what coaching is.
mm. Oh, interesting. So at this point, what are you seeing, or if you're seeing anything in terms of your profession as an accountant or as a CPA, in the world of finance? What do you see as opportunities for coaching in that space?
Oh yeah, there's tons that I see in my
Yeah.
profession. Yeah, um, because coaching is fairly new, even in corporate field. I know some companies have like internal coaches or they'll bring in consultants, but at least for the company that I work in, it's the largest insurance company and financial company in Canada. But even then, there's no such thing as having access to a coach. I mean, there are some mentoring programs where if you want to get connected to someone that you admire, or if you have the aspiration to rise the corporate ranks, then I mean, there could be someone who's going to mentor you along, but there's no such thing as coaching where, if let's say you're going through your work and you feel stuck in a particular aspect of work, or that you're having some issue with your life and you want some help with that. I mean, there's no assistance in regards to that. So I think having a coach within a corporate setting, in any corporate setting, is going to be a huge benefit to any employers, because that's going to allow their employees to really open up, get unstuck in whatever problem or challenge that they're going through, so that ultimately they can perform at the highest potential, right? And I think, which employer doesn't want their employees to reach their potential, right? So
Right.
I think this is really a necessity that not a lot of people are known about. And people at the top are still comprised of a lot of the baby boomers, and their generation is very different from our generation, where their philosophy was all about, work hard, get things done, don't make excuses, stop, complaining, just, go do and get the stuff done. Whereas for us, we want more of flexibility and more support in regards to what we want to accomplish. So I think we're still at that transition phase where the mindset is starting to shift, but I don't think we're quite there yet. But I can tell that I can sense that more of those opportunities will be presented in corporate setting very soon.
Mm, amazing. So, what do you think would change if people had access to that kind of support within your organization? Like that kind of assistance you're talking about?
Yeah, I think people will be much more empowered in their job, first of all, and also in their personal life as well. Because oftentimes, if things are not taken care of in your personal life, it is going to be carried over in your corporate life, no doubt about it. So if people can have access to coaches where they can freely talk about some of the things that they're having challenges with at home, whether it's about their kids or their wife or whatever it may be, if they can have some sort of resolution in their personal life, then they can really focus on their work in the corporate setting. So I think it's really a delicate balance of making sure that they do a good job at work, but also making sure that they have a good balance in their personal life as well.
Mm.
So if a coach can present those opportunities to them, then I think the employees can be much more efficient at work while having more happiness and satisfaction, and which is ultimately going to bring more satisfaction in terms of working for their employer. So I think it's really, really crucial. And a lot of the surveys nowadays in corporate settings are bringing in concepts of like, how happy are you working for this company? And if you're not happy with your personal life, then that is going to be carried over in the survey. So making sure that everything is taken care of in their life is going to be really, really crucial.
You're touching on a really important piece of coaching, which I think we don't talk about enough, and that's the whole person approach to coaching, right?
Yeah.
That we come as like people, whether I'm at work or I'm at home, the two intersect, right?
Right.
Your personal life interferes at work. Your work life can interfere at home. And something else that you mentioned around the gosh, what was it? I just lost my thought. But I just wonder about oh, right, niching. People talk about niche, I want to be an executive coach or I want to be a life coach. And funny enough, you chose the life and wellness program, correct? As your
Right, that's right.
And so what do you think about this whole idea of a niche? And is it really fair to say that because I always thought it doesn't matter who I'm coaching, if I use the framework and I use my skills, I've been successful in every coaching conversation I've had to engage and to work with clients to progress. It's not about my executive background or my skills in that space. And same for like personal one-to-one clients who come for life coaching. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% correct that whatever skill set that you have as a life coach can certainly carry over to executive coaching or professional coaching or performance type of coaching. So from that perspective, I think there's no huge need to set boundaries, but if you're just starting off as a coach, I think it is important to set a specific niche or have an ideal client avatar. And that's one of the things that I've learned through business workshop series with Daniel Burns.
Oh, you took this.
Yeah, so I just recently finished the program. So that was
Oh,
really, really
great.
helpful in nailing down my niche and my ideal client avatar. Because if you're not specific on who you're helping, then people are going to view you as a generalist. And in most cases, people will go to a specialist as opposed to a generalist. So if you tell people that, I help these type of people solve these type of solutions so that they can have this type of outcome, then, oh yeah, he's speaking to my problem. That's the result that I want. And they'll choose that person over someone who says, I can help you with this, I can help you with that, I can help you at work, at home, I can help you with everything, right? So those type of coaches may be viewed as generalists. So when you're getting started, I think it's important for you to have that focus on what niche that you want to go to. But as you're getting more referrals and as your work gets more known in the field, then you can start to broaden out and choose what type of coaching that you want to do. Because like you said, a lot of the skill sets transfers over from one to the next. So that's how I view in terms
Well,
of the
and
niche.
the idea of the avatars, like when I designed the curriculum for that business workshop series, what I was thinking about when I thought about avatars,
Avatars, yeah.
is the idea of connecting with what people believe and what they
Right.
want. So, your mission statement that you did in the program and
Yes.
kind of creating this connection with your audience that could be anybody, but they believe what you believe, and so they come to you. So I get what you're saying about generalist or specialist for sure. And I think that, coaching businesses grow through referral, and so it's a domino effect. But I really feel strongly that the framework that I learned and that I've been teaching in this program and certification is strong enough to support any conversation.
Hmm.
And so avatars to me are marketing. It's like that.
Hmm.
It's the window to your
Yes.
storefront, right?
Yeah.
But the craft and the skill of what you're doing every day, and that's what I really like about, having that framework. It's and it's grounded in, in that peer reviewed research, evidence-based kind of approach of that we talk about all the time. And so it's supposed to give people like confidence, like strong legs to stand on, right? But yeah, it's interesting your that perspective of because I know for us with the academy, we share with what we believe. This is
Hmm.
what we believe about coaching. This
Yeah.
is what we believe coaching can do. Our mission is to multiply the impact of coaching. If you believe what we believe, then we are for you. We also believe in
Hmm.
evidence-based, grounded, peer-reviewed research to support what we do, and the ICF accreditation. So there's a package around it,
Yeah.
So, and then we end up opening our doors to people like you and everyone else, like across Canada, now in the US and overseas. Like that's what I really appreciate about having that mission that,
Yeah.
that can speak to your audience.
Absolutely.
So
And
that was
just to
really,
clarify, yeah, just to clarify what I've just said, it is from from a perspective of marketing, of how you get the
yeah,
clients as a new coach. But you're
yeah,
100% correct on once you learn the framework, you can apply to any type of coaching. And I've done enough coaching to know that like I have confidence in myself that I can step into any coaching session without knowing any background of what we're going to be coached about, that I know that as long as I follow the framework, then I am going to produce the level of result that I know I can get for the clients. So it could be like a life coaching or performance coaching or career coaching, health coaching, whatever that may be. The topic does not matter because I'm not here who has all the solution. I know the frameworks on how to guide a client to find the solutions on their own. So just to clarify, I 100% agree with what you said.
yeah.
But what I just said was in regards to the marketing perspective on how to get your first client and how to build your business from a ground up.
Yeah, I agree with you from that perspective. And you're just making me think. So my background before coaching was in the financial industry. It was in
Oh,
mutual
really?
funds.
Okay.
Yeah. And I um really and that was my first introduction to coaching actually, because the gentleman that I worked for in that space put me into a coaching program, right?
Mm.
So I wonder what you think about like what you do for clients. I'm not sure what level you're at or if you're client facing, but if you think about the financial services or even insurance that you're offering clients, isn't it interesting how coaching can really help you to serve the client in a way that you can understand their needs better just by asking those great questions?
Absolutely, yeah. So when I used to work at the banks, I was in a client-facing
Mm.
role. Right now, I am in adjudication and legal side. So I'm in commercial
Okay.
mortgages investments. So I'm not in insurance per se. However, to get to your point, um, for someone who's in a client-facing situation, 100% having the coach knowledge is going to benefit them so much because you're able to listen better and go deeper into what the client actually needs as opposed to what they say initially. Because oftentimes when you have a conversation, what they say to you is only at the surface level. So it's a symptom of something that's greater in the root cause, right? So
Mm-hmm,
when you have the
mm-hmm.
ability to go deeper into finding out what's the true desire, what are their values, what do they really need, as opposed to what they said, then you can just go really deep and get to the point, and the client will recognize that, wow, this person really knows me. Like this person knows what I need, right? So that level of connection is going to be completely different as opposed to just being mechanical about, okay, I'm going to ask them these questions, this is the target that I'm going to hit. The rapport and the connection is going to be off the charts. It's not even comparable. Like even after I started coaching, like the level of connection that I'm able to build with the people around me has gotten stronger. And when I coach others, even though I'm meeting them for the first time, I'm able to build a rapport right off the bat, even though we're in a Zoom setting, right? Even though we're meeting virtually, I'm able to create that rapport because I've done it enough. I know what it takes. So I think having that knowledge is just night and day difference.
Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting in front of clients and, it could be a retiring couple or it could be a young couple coming up. The goals and objectives are so different
Hmm.
and their risk assessment is different. Like, so asking those great questions, having a coaching conversation before you're advising
Right.
is like, if I look back on that, I would think that would be the differentiator in that, what you said, that rapport and relationship building that would really solidify that relationship for, you know, the rest of their lives probably, and maybe their kids and their grandkids, it's
Yeah,
one of those things
absolutely.
that could go on a long time, right?
Yeah, it can certainly create a ripple effect that can pass down generations, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
when we change, our whole world changes, we have that much power, but it has to start with us, myself, right? And it
Mhm.
can create that huge ripple effect where it can positively influence the people that are around you. So I think that's
Mhm.
really the foundation and core mission of being a coach. And you
Mhm.
just remind me of a story of a coach that I spoke with recently, where she's a new coach and she's been a real estate professional all her life, and now she wants to get into coaching the client side. So for people who are purchasing new homes, she wants to coach those type of people because oftentimes the realtors are so focused on getting the sale that they don't
Mhm.
take enough time to really find out what are their real needs are, right? To have that conversation where what are the pros, what are the cons, what do you really want out of a home? And that was my experience as well when I first bought my condo in Toronto. I personally felt my realtor was just focused on getting the sale, that I wasn't really attended to my need. But she wants to step in and become a coach for them so that they're able to recognize the client's needs as well as the needs of the realtor to sort of like act as a bridge. And I thought that,
Oh,
wow, that's a
interesting.
wonderful idea. Like I've never thought of that before, and I don't know anybody who does that. But if you have a passion for that, I think that's a great niche that you can get into. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities and different
Yeah.
ways that you can coach, which is a great thing as well.
Well, the one I heard recently, a niche that I heard, which I thought was super interesting, was uh, it was it called environmental grief coach.
Oh, what is that?
People who are really saddened about the state of the climate change and
Okay.
the world and environment. And
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, I mean, there's a niche everywhere you can think of in coaching because it's a human skill, right? It's
Mm,
supportive in nature. And it's I mean, if you think about all the people who get divorced and a divorce coach helping people
mm.
through and navigate that is
Yes.
such a hard time in life, all these different, I guess they're transitions if you look at them. All the
Hmm.
opportunities in coaching are parallel to the transitions of life, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I told you earlier that I have networked with a lot of new and aspiring coaches, and a lot of them are in the field of relationship,
Mm,
especially for women who are in the age group of 40s and 50s, where the kids are just getting out of the home and they may perhaps have gone through a divorce recently. So they're trying to find out, okay, what's the next step for me? How can I ground myself, keep my emotions in check while having clarity for their future? So I found that a lot of coaches wanting to get into that specific niche as well, because there's a lot of demand for that. There are a lot of people who are trying to find out what are the next step for me while being able to maintain my emotion in check and being grounded. So I think that's and your comment about environmental grief coach is very interesting. I've never heard of that
yeah,
before. I never even thought of that before.
yeah, I
But as
know,
you
me
know,
neither.
a lot of people are getting worried about environmental stuff, and even in my corporate world, ESG, we call it ESG, so environmental governance and the strategic aspects are very important for all of the large organizations. So we can't just ignore the environmental aspects of the business anymore. Like we have to make sure all the buildings meet the criteria so that they are environmentally friendly according to the guidance from the government. So that's becoming more and more of a bigger issue as we speak. So yeah, I mean, but just to prove your point, the possibilities are endless. It's a matter of
Yeah,
like, what am I passionate about? Where is my heart at? And from
yeah,
there, who can I help? Right. So I
yeah.
think that's a great point.
Well, and another one that I'm working on understanding more is the role of allyship in coaching. And so,
Allyship.
you know,
Okay.
like equity, diversity, inclusion.
Yes.
And I'm currently organizing a panel discussion actually for a level 3 program that I'm designing for like an ICF MCC level accreditation.
Okay.
And I have you here, and you're an immigrant to Canada, and you know,
Yeah.
South Korean. And so I wonder, what do you think is the role, or is there a role for, you know, allyship and coaching, this idea of creating, you know, even, well, actually, I'll just leave it there. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think that's very important because, as you know, Canada has a lot of immigrants and it's just going to grow from here. So I think it's important to have as much resource for new immigrants to have access to the people who can understand their culture. So, as an example, if someone who's new from South Korea wants to find a coach, I think they're going to resonate a lot more with me. They could resonate more with me as opposed to someone who doesn't speak English or Korean, and they don't understand of the Korean culture at all. So having more of that diversity to make sure that you have coaches from all different walks of life and different cultures is very important because Canada is known to be the most, one of the most, if not the most, diverse country in the world. So I think, yeah, having that initiative is going to be very important. And it's very unique that you thought about that and you wanted to implement that going forward. And I want to make sure I understood your question correctly. Is that the way that you
Yeah,
ask
well,
that you
so
want to lead
just
the
to,
conversation?
yeah, sorry, to give you more
Yeah.
context, we had a Coach Connect that was delivered by Erwin Bess, who's
Okay.
talked about allyship. So he
Okay.
talked for the Black History Month. He came in
Okay.
and talked about, you know, the role of allyship in his father's success as an actor,
Mm.
and how, you know, that how like we can all support, you know, minorities or underrepresented groups to achieve more, and you know, as mentors, as allies, as you know, a pathway to open doors to more people and more conversations, more equality, more equity, in other words,
Hmm.
diversity,
Yeah.
inclusion. And Erwin, and that conversation was amazing, but Erwin led this conversation um, thinking about what is the role of a coach in that, in allyship, and is, you know,
Yeah.
can we do more as coaches, and what's our responsibility, like for example, you know, at the academy, how do we bring, you know, more attention to create spaces of equity and diversity and inclusion, and recognizing even, and when I say that, I also mean learning styles. I mean, you
Mm.
know,
Yes.
neurodivergent versus neurotypical. You know, there's all these different aspects to diversity, right? So how do we include more, how do we create more inclusive spaces? And I thought like a
Yeah.
panel with people who represent all kinds of diversity to talk about ways that they feel underrepresented or challenged in a learning environment, or even in as a coach, and what we can do as coaches to make that more,
Mm.
I guess, accessible.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, the way people learn in different cultures are so diverse. Like the
Yeah.
way that we learn in South Korea is very different from how we learn in Canada. So you would think that if I make the learning education platform this way, then I'm sure it's going to resonate with everyone. But then that may not be the case if it is someone who came from South Korea. So I think it's very good that you have that awareness and the knowledge that it's important to bring in people from all walks of life and different diversity to make sure that, okay, so how do people from India learn? What's their model of learning? Are they more of an audio learner? Do they like to, watch videos? Do they like to read more? Right. So using those fundamental techniques on, what resonates with them more than what I think that they need. So yeah, I think having a panel of those diverse people is going to be really crucial. Now that
Mhm.
it's not just going to be, Canadians that you're going to be targeting, I
No,
suppose it's going to
I
be,
mean,
yeah,
if you can't ask me to talk about, you know, underrepresented, other than women, of course, but
right.
or French Canadian maybe, but we have to bring in people who represent, you know, diversity. to have those conversations. And so that's what I'm working on now.
Yeah.
And really about, I think that can kind of have a ripple effect of its own, right? To
Hmm.
so that we can start to understand, maybe there's a role for an allyship coach one day. Like we're just focused on kind of like what you're talking about, that role of mediation between, the person buying the house and the person selling the house. Well, that could
Hmm.
be a metaphor for a lot of different kinds of conversations out there, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't know if you're familiar with all the different AI tools that are available now, but just recently there's a platform called HeyGen, and what that platform provides is it will clone you exactly, so your looks, your facial expression, your body language, even your voice, so that you no longer have to be there, to create a content, as an example.
Right.
So using that, you can even translate the language. So if you created a content in English, then you can just translate it to a different language. Let's say, for example,
Oh
if you wanted
my
to translate it to
God.
South Korean, you will be speaking South Korean in that exact same platform, and it's not going to look unnatural at all. It's going to look like you're actually speaking South Korean.
Oh
So
my
we're just at
God.
the beginning stage of that, but that's only going to get bigger and bigger as we go along. So the possibilities of reaching diverse culture and people from all different worlds are just going to be endless. It's just a matter of like having the
You
passion
know,
to create content. And yeah.
Steve, I was reading a research paper
Okay.
last week, 2 weeks ago, about clinical psychology and the role of VR in clinical psychology and the positive impacts, like
Mm.
creating more empathy, deeper listening skills. Like you can actually start to develop the skills of coaching using VR. But this is
Mm.
VR. This isn't even VR and AI yet. This is just VR. So
Yeah.
that led me to Chat GTP,
Hmm.
which led me to Google or to whatever, to search in Chat GTP,
Right.
the role of VR in coaching. Okay.
Mm.
So that leads me to other searches, which led me to a conversation I had last week with a VR company in the UK who tells me about how AI is changing VR, virtual
Mm.
reality, and the ways that we can use virtual reality and AI combination to create simulated conversations in coaching
Yeah.
and simulated group and team environments in coaching. And he talked about the hologram and a holograph or whatever you want to call it. But he did not mention what you just said about the languages, and that just blows my mind. That is
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, so I've been
Oh,
really into AI since last year, and I've been taking courses to learn the ins and outs of AI, like the prompt engineering. Because as you know, there's so many different AI tools that you can use, but the quality of the output will depend on the quality of the input. And it's really important to really understand how does the AI work, right? Like what kind of prompts do you need to put in, you can even think about to a point where, I don't know if you're familiar with NLP, neuro linguistic programming, but just getting so deep with the language of formulating your questions so that the answers are going to be at the highest of the quality. So I've been learning a lot about that. And in fact, I'm going to be going through a certification process to become an AI consultant, which I'll be
oh,
eventually incorporating into my coaching as well, where I may not do it on the side, but nonetheless, I have that much passion into AI at the moment. So yeah, I mean, there's just so much possibility that are out there right now that yeah, it's quite mind blowing at this time.
I'm blown away at what could become, because when I was having that conversation, um like the gentleman mentioned that we could input the ICF core competencies and
Hmm.
then have like me show up. So somebody's having a conversation with virtual you, and
Hmm.
AI is making it a real-time conversation. So it's no longer programmed. It's actually happening because
Right.
how AI can access, real-time information.
Yeah.
Um, and then if a competency isn't being seen or observed, they can pause the session, put you in another area of where I show up and I
Hmm.
remind them of core competency XYZ
Very
and what
interesting.
it is,
Okay.
and then they go back into the conversation and they get a chance to do it again. And then at the
Right.
end of the conversation, they're given feedback based on
Mm.
the core competencies of coaching, what they
Yes.
missed, what they observed, all this stuff. And I was like, whoa. And then now you throw the language piece in there, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then he said
absolutely.
what you said, it could look like me, sound like me, same, it picks up quickly.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I'm just the AI piece, and what you did say about that parameter, it's so important.
Hmm.
Because think of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Think of politically correct, or whatever you want to call
Hmm.
it.
Right.
There's AI is the internet. It can go
Hmm.
anywhere and do anything and find anything, and it doesn't
Right.
have necessarily the maybe it's the intelligence to decipher between moral and not moral, good and
Right.
bad kind of information. And so and that's what that person was telling me as well, is there's still this idea of containing the AI, and how do we do that to make sure the conversations are not don't go south.
That's right. Yeah. So there are certainly limitations to AI at this point, like the reasons that you mentioned, ethics and morals,
Yeah.
and there are other things as well. But it is constantly evolving and improving like lights and day every single day. So I think it will eventually come a point where a lot of those limitations will be removed. So you'll be able to utilize the AI tool to translate your contents into South Korean, while at the same time ensuring that it respects the cultural aspect of South Korean,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
the AI will be able to adopt and incorporate, what's right and what's wrong from Korean perspective. So those are all going to be there eventually. It's just not there yet. But like I said, the possibilities are endless. And even speaking about coaching, I've heard recently that through my AI training that at the end of the coaching session, if you can have the transcription of the conversation, you can prompt ChatGPT to ask for like what are the deeper desire that the client had at this particular conversation. Like instead of what they said, what do they really mean? What do they really want? So you can get really, really specific with the prompts to make the coaching conversation even better and more powerful in the future. Because a lot of times you will leave out some of the things here and there because we're human beings, we can't incorporate and interpret everything, right? But as you go through the coach recording, you'll be able to dissect it more precisely so that you know exactly what the client was thinking or feeling, and you can tailor that into your coaching in the future. So yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that we can do as coaches with AI.
Oh, oh no, it's very exciting and also scary. you know
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
I heard that a lot. It can be
Yeah.
scary at the same time. But if it's not going to go away, then we just need to make sure that how do I live with it, right? How can I make sure that I use it for my assistant, as opposed to letting it take over and do everything for me? Because that's not really the intention of an AI. It's really there as our assistant tool, as opposed to delegating all the tasks and okay, AI, you do everything. I'm just gonna go take off and lie on the beach, right? So that's not the intention that we're heading with the
No,
AI.
no, I know. And I don't know, like, I think I feel kind of very blessed and grateful to be in a profession that the human connection is important. And
Yes. Yeah.
and I don't think that AI can replace that, even though it
No.
can make us better and smarter,
Yeah.
and assist, as you said. I don't think it can replace. Even as if it becomes like hyper intelligent, there's still that element of energy and spirituality and connection that is so important to people discovering their own like their themselves, right? Their ideas, getting
Right.
smart, thinking through things. And I feel like that's something that isn't going anywhere too soon anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Mm.
100% agree with you. And that's some of the things that the AI experts have been saying as well, that the human connection will never go away. So no matter how much AI develops, it may contain all of the intelligence of a human being, but then it's not going to be as emotional as what we are, right? And
Mm.
and we as coaches, emotions are probably more important than the actual conversation in a lot of cases. So if that emotional connection is not there, we can only go so much in a coaching session. So, I know some coaches are afraid of, oh, what if AI develops to a point where it's going to replace all of the coaches, right? Because some people can just go into ChatGPT and ask, ChatGPT, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling depressed. What are some solutions for me? And you can get the solution, but then is that really going to create that emotional connection that you need to really feel it?
Mm.
Not really. So,
Mm.
yeah, that's never gonna go away. So that element is always going to be there as coaches, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and because I think a big part of coaching is the partnering. It's the co-creating that
Hmm.
you get, and you're not going to get that from a machine, right? Whether or
Yeah,
not it gives you
no,
solutions, it's not that co-creating piece, you know?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The dialogue maybe is what I want to say. I'm not sure what it is, but there's an element, there's the human side of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what would you, I see we're kind of coming down on time. Sorry, I
Mm,
think I'm keeping you a bit
okay.
long, but what would you tell somebody who was considering coach certification now, not sure what to do, like not sure if it's for them? What would you say to them right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think our heart knows the answer all the time in any
Mm.
given moment in time. So if your heart knows that this is the right path to go, then it's really the right answer. And I know, our sometimes our head gets in the way where we have to think about our financial, aspect of it. Am I going to have enough time? We're all busy with life, so that can get in the way of starting to become a coach. But if you're someone who wants to really help other people, have that deep desire of making a positive and better difference in the world, and if coaching is something that has been in your heart all along, then I definitely recommend that you take uh, the certification course through Canada Coach Academy, because it's really going to give them the foundational skills, like the framework, how to think, and give them the space and the opportunity to practice as well. And I think that's another big aspect that you created in the platform, where you give coaches opportunity to coach each other. Because no matter how much you read about swimming, if you never get into the swimming pool, you'll
Right,
never learn how to swim, right?
right.
And it can be daunting at times, but at some point, you just need to jump into the water and actually implement what you have learned. And your platform provides all of that, like all the learnings, education, the practice as well in a safe environment. So I think Canada Coach Academy has really everything that you will need if you want to become a coach. And even though there are some people who say that, you don't have to be certified to become a coach, I really think that it's very important to learn these skills, these foundational skills, before you become a coach. Because if you don't have it, um, ultimately you may not have lifelong clients, because if you don't have those skills, then people may not be satisfied with your level of coaching, and you may just spending more time on lead generation and having more enrollment conversation as opposed to having the actual client. But when you have those foundational skills locked in, then your clients will ultimately get better benefits and results, and they'll elect to stay with you for a longer time. And who knows, you may get to a position where you can choose who you work with and how long that you want to work, right? So I think it encompasses all of that. So yeah, I think everybody who wants to become a coach should be certified and go through a proper training.
Yeah, well, thanks for thanks for saying that. And also,
And I mean it from my
I
heart.
agree with you. No, but I feel like it's important. I think the reason this podcast exists is to help people understand what coaching is and isn't, and also different pathways to becoming a coach, like in the sense of like going through training and then deciding like how are you going to build your business as a coach? How are you going to build a
Mhm.
practice?
Yes.
And also to hear from students like you know, what the experience was like in the academy.
Mm.
And so, yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I think it's important that people know, you know, what we're doing here and what we have to offer.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time. It was really
Yeah.
nice
Yeah, likewise.
to have this conversation. And is there a place that people can reach you, or, you know, if they want to connect with you, do you want to share some like contact info?
Yeah. So if anyone wants to connect with me, they can reach me at stevekimcoaching.com. And I also have a YouTube channel called Steve Kim's Elite Performance Coach. So you can reach me in any
Nice.
of those platforms, and you'll be able to, yeah, connect with me and see where we can go from there. I'm easily
Great. Well, we'll
accessible.
post your contact information as well on
Okay.
the podcast. But yeah, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you very much, Natalie, for inviting me to your podcast. It's been an honor, and it's great to connect with you as always. Thank you.
Wonderful.